Hey, boys and girls, it's Little Red Riding Hood, and I'm reading Pay Attention, Carter Jones. I hope you're enjoying it. We don't have that many more chapters to go. And today we're reading chapter 23, The Stance. Let's review what happened in chapter 22. They had an assembly, and it was for the football team, but people were more excited about the cricket game that's going to happen tomorrow. All the teachers have changed their lessons to talk about cricket. It was getting really exciting. And then Carter was upset because he wanted to take the whole family back to Australia, but they're not going to ever get to go back because, well, I wouldn't say they won't get to go back, but he's disappointed that his dad won't be with them and his younger brother Currier won't be with them. So let's read chapter 23 and see what happens today. Chapter 23, Stance. The stance is the position the batsman takes when the bowler is about to deliver the ball. A batsman presents his left or right side shoulder pointing down the wicket. We didn't expect what happened when we got to the Longfellow Middle School football field on Saturday morning. We got there in plenty of time. The butler made us all get up early. My mother and Annie and Charlie and Emily too. Ned was pretty excited, I guess, because he knew something unusual was happening. So he threw up twice. I walked him around the block while the butler cooked Irish steel-cut oatmeal. One need not deplore everything that comes out of a nation despite its lame politics, he said. Unless it's Italy, I said. Lame its ability. Pizza does overwhelm what might otherwise be attracted, said the butler. Emily said she hated oatmeal when the butler put the bowl down in front of her. And she didn't like brown sugar, and she didn't like raisins, and cream was yucky, and why didn't we ever have 1% milk anymore? I told you it was really early. It is a liable to be blustery on the pitch this morning, the butler said. Cricket is boring, said Emily. The butler handed her a spoon. Miss Emily, he said, only a dullard would believe such a thing. What's a dullard? The butler added some brown sugar to Emily's oatmeal. Currently, your television stations are spending most of their time airing 3-hour-long orgies of what Americans mistakenly call football. If you were to watch the commercials, and you shall not least be infected. But if you were to watch them, there would be no need to ask such a question. Now to the task at hand, please. Emily, I said, if you eat your oatmeal, I'll let you bowl the first ball. Really? She said. But you have to eat all your oatmeal. The first ball? I nodded. Emily was the first one finished with her Irish steel-cut oatmeal, and after we all finished too, we piled into the eggplant, the girls wearing coats since the butler had been right and the conditions were not the best. I was wearing a coat. I had on my white sweater, which was still too long, but I was used to it. You need the freedom of your arms today, young Master Carter, said the butler. Suppose I get cold. Then you shall bowl all the more vigorously, said the butler. And so we came to the Longfellow Middle School football field at 7:30 in the morning, and we parked the eggplant in the school parking lot. Krebs was already there, and his father too. And Coach Karaskas, and in just another minute or so, everyone from Team India and Team Britannica was there as well, jumping up and down, and beating and holding out our arms around ourselves because it really was cold and windy. Blustery, said the butler. Freezing our cleats off, I said. I think it might snow, said Coach Karaskas. The butler took some blankets out of the trunk for my mother and sister, and he handed me 3 bright red new cricket balls and 3 new bats. Mr. Krebs Sr. and I have knocked them in ourselves, said the butler. And we headed towards the Longfellow Middle School football field, the home of the Minutemen. And that's where the thing we never expected to happen happened. What's that sound? Said Emily. The wind, said Annie. But it wasn't the wind, it was the crowd. Mrs. Harnack wasn't the only one from Longfellow Middle School there after all. The stands were full. That's right, full. Full! I know, I couldn't believe it either. What are all these people doing here? I said. Soon there will be a cricket match played on this field, said the butler. Where else would they be? Asleep, I said, or watching Ace Robotroid and the Robotroid Rangers, or raking leaves, or... Young Master Carter, said the butler. There is time enough for all of that. Now is the season for cricket. Ace Robotroid comes on only on Saturday mornings. And no one here seems to care about that in the least, said the butler. And he waved his hand toward the stands. I guess they're not dullards, said Emily. The butler leaned down. You, my dear, are exactly right. Now here's the ball. Let me show you where to stand. And your brother will bat. Which I did 4 times because Emily said the first 3 didn't count because they only rolled to me. I took a few steps towards her and the 4th one did reach me. And I batted it out to Krebs and he threw the ball back in. And then he bowed to Emily. Really, he bowed. And Emily was so happy she would have thrown up if she were a Dasset ham. Then I took her hand and walked her over to my mother in the stands, where everyone was cheering for her. And the stands were really, really full. I leaned down to her. Was it worth the oatmeal? She nodded. I could see Mrs. Harnick and Mrs. Rubel and Mr. Solslick and Mr. Barkis. Principal Swestick was there in her white sweater. I think most of the 6th grade was there, and probably most of the 8th grade, and even some of the 7th grade. But there were lots of other people too, and I don't think they were just to get a good seat for the Minutemen game. There were a lot of parents and grandparents and little kids. One kid was leaning over the rail, holding up both his arms and cheering like he wanted to be out on the field with us. 2 old guys were all decked out in white sweaters, probably cricketers once. And Billy Colt's parents were there, and a bunch of girls. Annie knew from 5th grade, and Sarah Bixby, who was cheering like a wild child, and Patty Trowbridge, who waved at me, and Jennifer Washburn, who waved at Krebs, but he didn't notice. And even if you can believe it, a news crew from WZZN stringing long cables and fussing around with 2 cameras. Is this on television? I said. Depends on whether it's a busy news day, said the cameraman. I told the butler, who was putting on the white-brimmed hat to go with his white shirt. He must have been freezing his glutes off. That the match was going to be on television. He looked over to the cameras. Perhaps Ace Robotroid himself will be preempted, he said. Don't count on it, I said, and the butler handed me the stumps. Young Master Williams is just arriving. Shall I leave it to the 2 of you to put the stumps out? On the 39-yard lines, please. We may as well play dead center. So I took the stumps and I handed the bells to Billy Colt. And we went out to the 39-yard lines and started to pound the stumps in. And the whole crowd got really quiet, either because they were trying to figure out what we were doing or because they were waiting for Vice Principal Del Blanco to come out and start to pound us into the ground. But when we had the stumps in and the bells set on top, the crowd began to clap, as if we'd done something amazing. And Billy Colt took a bow like Krebs, and they all went wild. What are you doing? I said. They're cheering for Team Britannica, Billy Colt said. No, they're cheering because we pounded in the stumps. He took another bow, more cheers. Pretty soon they'll be cheering for Team Britannica, he said. Believe it while you can, I said. And we headed back to the Butler and to the 8th grade varsity cross-country team, except now they were Team India and Team Britannica. They were all wearing white sweaters, and Kreb was holding a bat and swinging it low, and Sign was lobbing slow bounces to his wicket keeper. And Team Britannica was warming up with short sprints, and I think we all could feel the eyes in the stands and the lenses of the cameras, and the cheering of the little kid whose father was holding him now, probably so he wouldn't fall over the railing. and the steady glare of the two old guys in white sweaters who were standing up and looking like they were ready to captain us if only we asked. They really must have been cricketers. And that little kid, he looked like he would have given anything right then to be a cricketer, just like Currier would have given anything right, just like the butler and the coach Karofsky waved us in, and we gathered around them. The wind was whistling like it does in the Blue Mountains, and I looked up into the stands and wished I had one of those blankets that my mother and Annie and Charlie and Emily were cuddling around themselves. "I am pleased to see you all wearing your whites," said the butler, "and that no one has succumbed to the temptation to wear the pajama kits that have become so fashionable." "Who wears pajamas to play cricket?" "Barbarians, Master William. Now to it. Coach Karofsky and I are the umpires, the ultimate arbiters of the game," said the butler. "Both whining about the disagreement with any of our decisions is unseemly and discourteous, and so will not occur on this pitch. Are we all agreed? Good, then. It will be my responsibility to oversee the coin toss, to monitor the number of runs, to be sure there is no running short, as Master Briggs is sometimes your tendency, so be on your guard, for I will carry it mercilessly. To signal when the ball is in, to respond to all appeals, and to mark all breaches of discipline, of which there will be none, gentlemen. Batsmen, you will take your guard in a timely manner, and bowlers, you will deliver without long delay. Play only a single inning so the game will be abbreviated, given the 10 o'clock necessity of 10-minute men. We will have time for 6 overs to a side, 6 balls for each. The fielders are restricted to 7 per side. This means, of course, that we will not be playing a true match. Nonetheless, Coach Karofsky and I expect the full attention and intensity of such a match from both teams." We nodded our heads and huddled closer, mostly to hide from the wind. "We begin with the coin toss." The butler handed a coin to see. "What's this?" he said. It is a pound," said the butler. "If you would be so kind to please toss it and spin it in the air, calling heads or tails. Whoever wins the coin toss will bat first." "How will we know which is which?" "The regal profile of the queen will be a clue." So Sim tossed the coin and called tail. And we all looked in to see it fall, and the butler called, "Tails it is!" And Team Britannica cheered, and Hopewell and Bryan ran to their wickets. And Krebs positioned the fielders. Steve Yang was a wicket keeper. And then he handed the ball to me, and he really said, "Remember, this is cricket, so pay attention." And suddenly the wind sneaked between the stands at Blankville Middle School football field and coiled around the 39 yards lines. It hunted and slithered and scrambled around us, then bit deep, like our white sweaters were its target. And it meant it hunted and slithered and scrambled around us, then bit deep, like our white sweaters were its target. And it meant to freeze our glutes off. It was the kind of cold, wet wind that comes just before the Australian tropical thunderstorm blows in. I looked over at the stands. The little kid's father had wrapped a blanket around him, and the little kid was still cheering, and his father was cheering with him and holding him tight. And that's when I felt the blue mountain of Australia lean over me, like I had always known they someday would. Well, do you think Carter Jones is going to pay attention and remember what Krebs and Coach Karofsky and the butler have taught them? Do you think they're going to play a good game of cricket? Who do you think is going to win? Is it going to be Team Britannica or Team India, now that they're all set up and ready to play? We'll read chapter 22 tomorrow, 24, sledging. All right. Thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to call us at 334-625-4844 for curbside service, or place a hold on an item at www.mccpl.lib.al.us, or you can even sign up for summer reading. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.